Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Lee Community Trust Online Veterans Hub. So this morning, I'm talking to Sophie Jackson from Military Veterans Service, and she's a cognitive behavioural therapist, and she's going to explain all about that in a minute. But welcome, Sophie. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me, David.
No problem. We spoke last week, and we thought it might be a good idea to kind of get what you do recorded, so people who don't really understand what cognitive behavioural therapy is, what the role of the Military Veterans Service is, and maybe give people who are watching this who maybe need some support or advice. Hopefully that can help them out. So what is the Military Veterans Service, just to start off with?
Yeah, so the Military Veterans Service is a specialist psychological therapy service for veterans. So we only see veterans of the British Armed Forces who live in Manchester and Lancashire.
Right.
We started in 2011 and have since grown and developed into this specialist therapy service. We usually see veterans who are presenting with anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, adjustment disorder, transition problems. It could be alcohol-related problems, anger, frustrations with civilian life.
Right.
It's just a wide range of conditions that we might see because of veterans' experience of the military.
Right.
So when we say psychological therapy service, it means that all our therapy is evidence-based, so it's governed by the NICE guidelines. So there's all research into what we do, and it's all under the NHS.
Right.
It's not affiliated with the Ministry of Defence or the MOD. It is the NHS.
So people get referred to it from the NHS through GPs and all that kind of thing?
Yeah, or people can refer themselves
and
bypass that medical sector as well. Right. So the veteran or their family member, with consent obviously, can phone us up and say we're struggling or we need a bit of help, and then we start that process.
Right.
The NHS have created what's called Op Courage, and Op Courage is a umbrella term for lots of different services. And Op Courage is a first point of call for any veteran who is experiencing mental health problems or experiencing difficulties.
Right.
So when they phone this Op Courage, they will do an assessment, and then the assessing clinician or the person will then point them in the right direction. And one of those avenues is us as a military veteran service.
Okay.
They may think that other services could meet their needs, but usually it depends on that person on that day. So as an arm to that Op Courage, under that umbrella term, we see people or see veterans for therapy. And if we're talking about cognitive behavioural therapy, which is what I do,
right.
Cognitive means thoughts or what's going on in people's head. It's just a fancy word. These psychologists, they all have
thoughts. Doesn't sound as cool, does it?
No. So therapy will be looking at thoughts and what's going on in people's head. Behaviour is what people do, how they react to certain situations, and in all of that, how do people feel when they're doing these actions or reactions, and how do people feel when they have certain thoughts. So when people have particular thoughts about the military, it could be really happy, and they could feel really happy and reminisce about the good times with the lads sat in the barracks and being on tour, and I hear a lot of stories about Gatorade, lots of lots of happy stories, but equally I also hear a lot of not so great stories as well. And some veterans who are struggling, talking about their traumas, they might have some negative feelings or negative thoughts about that. Particularly, topically at the minute is Afghanistan, troops leaving Afghanistan, and that could trigger a lot of our veterans thinking about Afghanistan. And when they think about that tour, it might bring out, anger, it might bring out low mood or depression and anxiety as well. And when they're feeling or thinking in these particular ways, they start reacting or acting or behaving in a different way. So if they're feeling angry, they might kind of push people away
Right.
So that would be a behaviour.
So it's part of the challenge in a session then to get them to link the thought with, and get them to understand that's your behaviour because of this thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
When they might not know that's what they're doing.
Yeah. So it's all in a vicious cycle. So a thought can lead a behaviour leads a thought, but then you've got these outside feelings as well, family members to contend with. You've got potentially bad dreams to contend with, and work. Yeah. So there's a lot of triggers as well. So it's in therapy, it's breaking that cycle and looking at, well, can we challenge these thoughts? Can we challenge your behaviour, and to get you starting to feel a little bit better?
Right. So with that in mind then, and people might be listening to this who were maybe thinking about therapy, and there might be loads of negative connotations around that word of going seeing a therapist. Yeah. Could you kind of talk us through how a session would work?
Sure.
If you came to meet you on a morning, how long does it last? What kind of stuff would you be doing? What's the environment like?
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff.
So if someone came to me and was quite nervous about starting to therapy, that would be getting them to the door or getting them in the session is a massive step, and actually I would congratulate people for taking that first step, because it's incredibly hard, especially when we think about the military and that taboo and that stigma about mental health. So I would actually first congratulate people if they are thinking about therapy. I'm really pleased that they would be. But if they came to a session, it would be one-on-one. It would be likely to be face-to-face unless they chose else, virtually, given our COVID situation.
Yeah. So there is a choice.
There is a choice. Yeah, it could be virtually on different softwares and on the computer, or it could be face-to-face. Now, I know I use this stadium before to see veterans, and I see veterans at your current base as well, which is lovely, by the way. But anyway, that's a side point.
Little plug there, A-Team, Hub, Lee.
So the sessions normally last for an hour, and that hour is vital. That hour is their time to not get distracted by the outside world and sit and primarily focus on their mental health. Sometimes they set agendas or plans to what we're going to talk about, so make sure we cover everything. Right. So it kind of, sometimes it's helpful to do that. Sometimes it's not so helpful, and that's patient choice as well. Yeah.
Do you kind of know a little bit of background on the patient before they turn up, or you getting everything as they turn up? That's the first time you're kind of speaking to them about the challenges that they're facing.
So we do have a bit of information because they've had that assessment with Op Courage, so that information will be passed on to us.
Right, okay.
So we would have knowledge going in, but we also, as therapists within the Military Veterans Service, either have served or have a connection with the military. Right. So we know going in that some of the problems that they might have faced, we couldn't have been there on that op themselves, ourselves, but we have knowledge of what it's like for veterans. Yeah. So we would have an understanding of their problems going in, but we would sit down and we would ask them to explain what's brought them to our appointment today, just to start getting some overall idea of their current problems, and then coming to terms with what the plan is. Yeah. What is the next steps for them? Are they able to commit every week or every fortnight, depending on what they would want? Because it's a tough process, I'm not going to sit here and say it's not, because it is a tough, they have to start challenging themselves and doing some tasks outside of the session to make sure it works. Yeah. It's lovely coming and chatting to someone each week, but it's getting to the
some work done on the
yeah. It's getting to the nitty-gritty and starting to really address it. So the sessions would be just talking. I drive a white car. I don't drive a white van, so there's no, padded cells or straight jackets or any lying on a couch and going into this whole different world. It is you're present. The veteran is present. The veteran is talking, and talking to someone who understands.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So no interruptions either. So family members can come in if it's helpful for the veteran. So if a loved one or a partner of can be there as a supportive factor, you know, and coming to the session, they might need that for the first couple. I know I've seen quite a few veterans with their partners sat next to them for support, but it would end up easing the veteran in so they could then attend on their own.
I get you. It's one of those things that's got to be done with, as an individual, with the therapist on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be something they've got to go through on their own, I'd imagine.
Yes.
Yeah.
And all sessions are confidential, so they'll stay between the veteran and the therapist.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really important because we don't want the veteran to think that the whole world's going to find out
Definitely,
their specific problems. It is just the therapist. I think there's definitely some conditions in that. You know, if the veteran tells them that they're a risk to themselves or others, or, you know, disclose something that's quite worrying, then the therapist may have to seek alternative advice and guidance with that. But it does stay, the therapy plan or the main problems with that veteran stays with the therapist.
Right.
And it's because therapy is hard, it takes a while to get to trust that therapist as well. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the starting sessions of therapy are around building that trust and understanding. And
something I was going to ask was how long would the process be? Is it kind of open-ended? Because obviously you've just alluded to there that it might take 3 or 4 sessions before that individual's comfortable in opening up.
Yeah.
They may have had a family member there, and then you're weaning that family member away until they're comfortable opening up. And that might be, I presume, it could be like 5 sessions in maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So then how long does a process of therapy last, or is it just open-ended?
I suppose it depends on the person. There is nice guidelines to say for military veterans with complicated PTSD, there is a specific amount of sessions for that. Mm-hmm. I think, I might be wrong, but I think it's up to 30.
Right.
I might need to check that, but there is a guideline between amount of sessions. At the Military Veteran Service, we know that it's not a quick fix. So we have the luxury of negotiating longer sessions if the veteran needs it.
Right.
But if you think about 30 sessions, and that is once a week, it's still a long time, isn't it? Yeah. They're still going to be in therapy for a good number of months, 6 months, 8 months potentially. Mm-hmm. So you'd hope to think by 8 months' time, a lot of changes would have occurred.
Yeah.
And there might be some veterans who come, dip the toe in, think, oh, it's not for me, it's too hard right now, and leave, but all come back. Mm-hmm. You know, and when the time's right, when they know they're ready to tackle this, they might phone me up and say, right, so, you know, now enough's enough now, come on, I want to start. And that's okay. You know, people have got to be ready to start working through this progress. Yeah.
And what's the end, what's the word I'm looking for? So once you've kind of finished your agreed sessions with this person, is that it? They just go of their own accord, or is there still support after you've agreed that these sessions are no longer going to happen? What support is there after that?
Oh, there's always loads of support. Yeah, there's always a safety net.
Yeah.
There's always an agreed plan. So if they are after therapy and they've been discharged, and they think, right, I'm struggling, I need a bit more support, then they just phone us up and we start the ball rolling again. Right. You know, that's not an issue. But there's also a plan around if they need additional support with employment or debt or housing, we would link them in with third sector charities like yourselves, so they always have someone to kind of have support from if we're not there. Yeah. Which I'm not saying we are here, but if they didn't want to come to us, there's lots of different agencies, there's lots of support, and we would have agreed a plan at their discharge point as to how they know where to access help, how they go about it, and what do they need to do to meet their goals or to meet their longer term transition goals.
Right. Yeah. So we're coming towards the end, and I wanted to discuss, obviously we're coming up to Bonfire Night, Remembrance Sunday. There might be people listening to this or watching it who aren't necessarily that comfortable with going to therapy, or they feel like they might not need it at this point. But these time of year, especially with Christmas coming up, Remembrance Sunday, Bonfire Night, these things can trigger past events within veterans. What kind of advice could you give to someone listening or watching if these events are causing them distress, challenging? What advice have you got? What can they do? Not quick fixes, that's the wrong term. Things to help them stay safe during this time.
Yeah, because you're right. November in particular is a really difficult month. And then you have December as well, which is really triggering, and lots of anniversaries as well. So if we're looking at Bonfire Night to start off with, because it's kind of coming up, if the fireworks or if the noises are particularly distressing or make people become anxious, what I would say is just ground themselves. So what I mean by that is using their 5 senses, so sight, sound, touch, taste, smell, to tell them that they are in the present. So if they're sat in their living room or their bedroom, to have a look around and to see their surroundings to prove that they're safe at home.
Right.
To touch maybe their partner, to know that their partner is next to them.
Something that's real, that grounds them to this present moment.
Grounds them to the present. It could be stroking a pet. It could be going to the water, going to the bathroom, splashing a bit of water on the face, cold water. It could be having a drink of water, getting up, making a brew, grounding themselves to make sure that they know that they're in the present, that they are in their house and they are safe. And it's really important to do that, because when we hear them fireworks sounds, they do sound like gunfire. They're really quite loud, and it can feel like people are under attack or there's mortars going on above head. So people get lost in, am I under fire? Am I under threat? Am I back there? Am I in a war zone? So really, really important to tell them I'm safe, I'm okay, I'm here with my family. I'm not there anymore. It's not happening anymore. It's just a memory.
So if the individual is maybe too lost in that moment, something that a family member or a child or something could do is help them to get into that present moment a bit more. Put a favourite song on or something, or
tell them, that you are here.
Keep their attention.
Yeah, definitely. Just reassurance. Everything's going to be okay. It's just a nightmare. It's just a flashback. And bring them back to the present moment. I had a veteran, he put a bit of perfume or aftershave, depending on partners. He put a bit of his wife's perfume on a tissue, and he put this under his pillow. And when he woke up from a nightmare, he smelled the tissue.
Oh, right, and that anchored him back to
And that anchored him back,
so that's cool,
because that instant smell reminded him that his partner wasn't in Afghanistan. It meant that his partner was here in 2021 and he wasn't back there. So it's really just finding personal ways that would be an instant, oh yeah, I'm back. Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I'm present. So pets can be really good at that. Pets don't like Bonfire Night and the fireworks anyway.
Tell me about it, our dog hates it.
So just stroking the pet and being mindful that you are stroking that pet and feeling the fur. I know it sounds a bit hippy-dippy, but actually it grounds the veteran, and it just is soothing. I guess what I'm trying to say is be kind to themselves and self-soothe and be aware. I think Bonfire Night last year with COVID there wasn't many organised shows or organised bonfires, but given the restrictions are lifting now, there is lots of, I know I've seen quite a lot of organised ones. So I think if veterans are wanting to go to organised events, just tell the people that they're with, be honest and open that it can cause a bit of anxiety. Maybe crowds can cause anxiety, and that's okay. Just plan. Maybe if they know they can still see the fireworks but away from the crowds, finding something that is comfortable and tolerable for that veteran. Also, if they are staying indoors, that's equally fine, but shutting the curtains, maybe putting that telly up a little bit louder so they can't hear it, maybe putting headphones on. It could be at night time. If they can still hear the fireworks at stupid o'clock in the morning, maybe putting some relaxation sounds on, or like the favourite songs on of the night time, so they've got a white noise in the background. I just think plan the day, plan what would be helpful, and start thinking, asking the veterans to think about what is going to help them in that moment of dealing with these fireworks, these noises, and it happens because we're only at the start of November. It happens throughout the month. Yeah. So
a bit of planning and preparation, and understanding that eventually you might be in an environment where there are fireworks going off, having little coping strategies in place for when that happens.
Yeah, that is personal to the veteran and will bring them right back to the present and calm them down. And I suppose the Remembrance and Armistice Day is coming up as well next week. So I guess the same for that. Plan the day. People remember that day in different ways, and that's okay. People go to the cenotaph, and that's okay. People sit at home watching the telly, and that's fine. But start thinking about it now, and I'd ask the veteran to plan the day now and what they're going to do for them, and what's going to be positive for them. I hear lots of veterans going off and seeing friends and having a good drink, and that's okay. But if we're talking about veterans with mental health difficulties or problems, that could create another problem.
Yeah.
So I get that that's the norm, or people would like to do that, but I'd ask the veteran to think about, well, what do they think is going to be helpful to them, rather than hinder him in the long run.
Yeah. I think if you think it from a non-veteran point of view as well, understanding that for people who haven't served, they might go to the cenotaph, they might watch it on the telly and think about like the lives that were lost, and kind of a celebration of people who served.
Yeah.
But for the veteran who is experiencing mental health challenges, they might, like you said, see it a different way. And I think for your public to understand that the veterans might not be seeing it the same way as people who haven't served have seen it, and have that kind of understanding.
Yeah.
That would be a big thing as well.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I think you're right, it's just different for different people, and there's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
The veterans just got to think about what's right for them and their loved ones, really, because their loved ones are connected as well.
Yeah.
So have a chat and have an open discussion with loved ones, carers, family members, partners, just to think about what's right for them, and talk about it now. And so it doesn't just happen and it's there and it's panicky, and it just, if we start preparing now and knowing what we're going to do now, then it takes the edge off, it takes the anxiety away. I suppose again, looking at coping strategies would be, it's okay to be upset. It's okay to be emotional. It's okay to have a bit of a cry. That's fine. There's no harm in that. Actually, I would really emphasise that, because
getting that emotion out.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, don't put any pressure on them. I don't ask the veteran not to put any pressure on themselves, to do things that maybe they weren't ready to do, or ready to go and be with friends and loved ones at wherever. Also, if things are getting a little bit difficult, especially around remembrance, then to seek support, seek advice, phone someone up, phone a friend up, phone a loved ones up, talk about it. But also phone up Courage or phone the Military Veteran Service, and you know, you don't have to do a referral. You just say, you know, I need a bit of help, and that's okay. We just might talk to you.
Yeah.
I suppose we're here to listen and help. As we know in the military, exercise, PT, can be really good. Can lift mood as well. It could be connecting with others. It could just be like the same things as we talked about for bonfire night. Self-soothe. Look at how can the veteran cope that's going to be helpful.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be my advice.
That's really good advice. So to kind of summarise, find stuff to do with your senses that keeps you grounded in the present moment, so you're not thinking about past events. Talk with your family, plan the day out, prepare yourself for kind of coming into these kind of environments where there may be bonfires and maybe fireworks. So having a plan in place, and maybe not indulging in the kind of negative behaviours that you might go and do. For example, going out having a drink and getting pissed. Yeah. And if you are struggling, obviously contact Military Veterans Service. We'll put the link in the show notes for this show in the audio and on the YouTube channel. Is there anything you'd like to add just before we finish here?
No, thank you very much for having me, and I really appreciated talking.
You're welcome, Sophie. That was some good advice as well. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Cheers.
Bye.